As a woman and a wife, we know how powerful our words are. We're supposed to be mindful and intentional about the words we speak to our husband. But what happens when we speak words that we know aren't mindful, intentional, and that can hurt? What do we do with those then? Well, before I get into all that, let me welcome you back to my channel. My name is Ayanna, and this is Beyond Committed, where we talk about everything from life, faith, family, marriage, motherhood, and everything in between, and we take them beyond. If this is your first time here, welcome, and I'm so glad you stopped by. And to make sure you're not a stranger, make sure you press that subscribe button below and then turn on your notifications so you don't miss a video. All right, now let's dive right in. About you, but I love to talk. There's rarely a time when I don't have something to say, some thought I can add to a conversation. Yet over the years, as I've grown and I've learned that, okay, not every thought needs to be shared. Not every word needs to be spoken. So, I've learned to tame the tongue in so many instances. Yet in my marriage with my husband, that is still a constant work in progress. Because in marriage, we're often a lot freer. We're often, there's less filters. You can kind of just be your true, authentic self and just be transparent and authentic and just kind of share your thoughts and your words with your husband. But not all words need to be shared. Not all thoughts need to be shared, even within your marriage, because our words can hurt. I know for me, with my husband and I, there have been times where I've said something and then I could just feel it cutting in the room. And then I'm like, oh, how do I take that back? But I can't, because it's already out there and it's already cut him. So now I have to, deal with it and, clean it up and bandage it up and try to work myself back to a place that, is loving and careful and intentional and mindful with my words. And it's something that is wise. We have to be so intentional and purposeful about, because our words can cut our husbands in ways that we don't even see and know. And they can leave scars that are lasting, scars that we may not even see that are there. And over the years, I have discovered that there are 3 things that as wives, we have to be so intentional about not saying to our husbands, because the way they cut deep, and the scars last a very long time. One thing as a wife we have to completely remove from our vocabulary is you always. You always do this or you always do that. Because the truth of the matter is no one always does anything. And by saying you always, it gives no room for there to be growth. It gives no room for there to be grace, because you've already assumed that he always does this. So there's no room to change. There's no room to course correct. There's no room to do better. And although he may have done it many times, 1,000 times, life happens. And sometimes we keep repeating the same misstep. It still needs to make sure that as a wife, we are always giving our husbands grace to grow and to do better, because we want the same thing. There are things in which as a wife that I know I do that it's like a repeated misstep. It's like a repeated error. And I'm like, okay, the moment I do it, I'm like, I didn't mean to do that, or I wish I didn't do that. And then over the years, I've grown to stop doing some things. And there's other things that I continue to make a misstep, because it is just something that I'm learning to move past and I'm learning to grow in. But I'm also grateful that my husband gives me the grace to not, remind me that I always do that, even though I do often do it. 9 times out of 10, I'm going to repeat that same thing. But he doesn't, put it in my face in that way. And it's so important that as wives, we are mindful of that, because we want to encourage our husbands to grow and to do things differently. But when we say you always, it doesn't give that room for growth. And it also gives room for him to just keep repeating it, because if you feel that he always does it, then he's just going to keep on doing it. I know for my husband and I, there have been times where I'm like, well, you always did it. And then he's like, well, no, I don't always. I did that then, and I may have done it before, but I don't always. Sometimes I do things different. Sometimes I do make a different decision, but I don't remember those things because it's a pattern of doing things one way. So as wives, when we are using our words, especially with our husbands, it's so important that we take out the vocabulary of you always. And another thing we have to remove from our wifey vocabulary is you never. It kind of goes hand in hand with you always, because it also leaves no room for growth and no room for your husband to do different, because you never do this. Well, if he never does that and that's your expectation, then 9 times out of 10, he's going to continue in that pattern. And we want to encourage our husbands to do different things, to grow, to, change it up a little bit. For instance, my husband, for the longest time, whenever he bought me flowers, bought me roses. And I know it was out of love. And I know it was because when we first had our first date, he brought me roses. So for him, roses were like a sign of love and care. And although I love roses, I don't love them as much as other flowers. I like bouquets of mixed flowers. I like lilies. I like dandelions. I mean, I like, spring blossom mixes, fall mixes. I love them all. I like flowers. They're beautiful. And you can mix a rose or two in there, but giving me like a whole dozen roses, it doesn't give me all the feelings. But I know that he is showing his love and care for me. So I accept him. I accept his love and his gift to me because I know gifts are one of my love languages. So he's doing something to show love to me. So it would be easy for me in this instance to be like, well, you never buy me any other flowers, because he for many years did not buy me any other flowers. But what I did do was one day when he bought me some roses, I was like, oh, these are cute. Or whatever I said. And then like the next time I knew it was like either our anniversary or it was like Valentine's Day or, coming up or whatever. A few weeks before that, I brought myself some flowers. I love Trader Joe flowers. So like I bought some from there. And they were like, one of them spring mixes or whatever. And I was like, these are pretty. I was like, these are kind of flowers I like as well. I like roses, but this is something that I would like as well. He was like, oh, okay. So the next time, you know what I got? A spring mix of flowers, and I was like loving it and loving him. So it's so important that as wives, even if our husbands are not doing what we want or not doing things that, kind of give us the feelings that we want to get, we don't come at them with, well, you never do this. Give them some encouragement, give them some grace, and then also kind of lovingly show what you would like done so that you're not staying in, well, you never, because you never know how he may surprise you. And the third thing that we have to completely remove from our wifey vocabulary is, why can't you be like ... It doesn't matter who you fill in the blank with. It just doesn't matter, because you don't want to be comparing your husband or your marriage to anybody else's, because you don't have that husband. You don't have that marriage. God didn't create your husband like him, and God didn't create you like her. So it's so important that we are mindful that by doing that and that comparison not only steals joy for you, it steals joy for your husband, and it can steal joy in your marriage because it's setting an unfair expectation, because there is no way that your husband can be like anyone else, whether that's your father or a friend or some, ideal husband that you see on TV or in movies or within your church, whatever. There is no ideal man that your husband can become, because he should be the ideal man for you. God created him beautifully and uniquely, just like he created you. And your union is just as beautiful and unique. So you have to make sure you are encouraging him in it, and you're encouraging each other to be who God created you to be. Not for him to be like somebody else, and not for you to be like somebody else. You have to make sure you're being intentional about being exactly who God created you to be. And by saying, why can't you be like, it is kind of downgrading the beautiful creation which God created you both. And we don't want to do that. I mean, God does wonderful things. And the things he does for us, are matchless to anything. So it's so important that as wives, we are not comparing either by our words or even by our thoughts, our husbands, anybody else. Because regardless of how perfect this other man or this other marriage may look from the outside looking in, there are going to be some things about that man and that marriage that you do not know, that you may not have been able to stay married to. You never know. So it's so important that as wives, we are mindful of loving the husbands that we have and not trying to compare them with somebody else. No matter how much you have a view of somebody else's life, even your own father or your best friend's husband, whatever it is, there are still going to be some things about them that you do not know. There's to be some things about their marriage that you do not know. Just like there's to be some things about your husband that no one else knows, about your marriage and no one else knows, regardless of how close they are to you. So it's so important that as wives, we are mindful to never, ever, ever say, why can't you be like? All right, that's it for today. And I want to know, what's one thing that all of us wives should remove from our vocabulary? Let me know in the comment box below. And if you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, and then make sure you press that subscribe button and turn on your notifications so you don't miss a video. All right, now until I see you again, bye.